Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurtzbacher, and today we are traveling to my personal happy place of Hawaii to learn about the art and science of traditional Polynesian voyaging. For more than 600 years, the canoes that brought the first Hawaiians to their island home had disappeared from Earth until the 1970s, when an artist named Herb Kāne dreamed of building a double-hulled sailing canoe, traditional style, that would be called Hōkūleʻa. Our guest today is Bruce Blankenfeld, who first sailed on Hōkūleʻa during training sails in 1977. Since that time, Bruce has voyaged tens of thousands of miles across Polynesia, the Pacific, and the world as captain and navigator of Hōkūleʻa and sister canoe, Hikianalia. He leads repairs and maintenance of both canoes and serves as voyaging director and board member for the Polynesian Voyaging Society. The story of Hōkūleʻa and Bruce's involvement are full of adventure and Hawaiian tradition. Can you imagine exploring and voyaging long distances by canoe, navigating only by the stars, as the Polynesians did long ago? Get ready, because that is what we are about to do. Bruce, aloha and welcome to the campfire.
Hey, aloha. Aloha, Scott.
I'm so excited. I have to share with you before we even get started. You know, I love travel. I love adventure. There's so many beautiful places around the world, and, you know, the list goes on and on. But for me, like, Hawaii is its own category. It is my happy place. It is just the most beautiful, most relaxed place on the planet. And I'm just so excited to be talking to you today from Honolulu.
Well, happy to be here too. The whole story is like so wonderful. I'm glad that we have a chance to share.
Yeah. So we're going to get into the story of Hōkūleʻa. I got to ask you, like, what has it been like for you to grow up in such a beautiful place?
I mean, we always recognize what a special place Hawaii is, you know, and sometimes you tend to, I don't know, take it for granted maybe because, you know, yeah. I mean, you know, growing up, all we did was surf and, you know, play in the ocean and hike and whatever. You know, we kind of did what we wanted to do, you know, exploring all over the island, but it's been wonderful. And, you know, we know more and more that, I mean, especially when you travel, you realize more and more how blessed we are.
Yeah. I mean, swimming in the ocean, surfing, going for hiking, like this is what that people that don't live there imagine what life would be like. And what you're saying is like people's imagination of what it might be like to grow up on Hawaii is exactly the life that you had growing up. That's pretty amazing. I love it. So this is such a cool story. I have been exploring the Polynesian Voyaging Society's website and the story of Hōkūleʻa. It is so cool. It is so fascinating. So for listeners, I wonder if we could just jump in. Can you give us some background on what Hōkūleʻa is?
So Hōkūleʻa is a replica of an ancient voyaging canoe. You know, it was built for the purpose of going out and relearning and rediscovering that art of building a canoe, sailing that canoe, learning about the oceans and the skill of navigation and so much more. And it was really, the whole purpose was to bring relevance to the beauty of all of that, where it was being challenged by others who weren't Polynesians that had questioned. Well, first of all, for the ability of the canoes to actually sail to windward, you know, instead of just being a vessel that's going to go downwind sailing. So that was the first thing. So, I mean, as far as exploration goes, when you look at all the stories of the voyaging, most of the voyages were two-way voyages. So it was into the wind or maybe downwind. But if it went downwind, it turned around and went back upwind where it originated from. And if it was upwind, then it turned around and went back to where, again, their point of origin. So that was one of the things. The other thing was the skill of the navigator. You know, there was a thought prior to Hōkūleʻa being built, and there was an idea, and it was being promoted through books that navigators could navigate purposely for 300 miles. And then after that, they'd be really pretty much at the mercy of the wind and the currents, and they end up where they end up. Well, that does not fit in with the actual reality of these canoes having done multiple voyages back and forth from Tahiti to Hawaii, or even from Tahiti to New Zealand and back. And also what that really doesn't fit, if that was true, if that actually was a true statement, no canoe would ever make it to Hawaii because of the two different wind systems. So anyway, those are kind of two of the things that it was kind of based on. You know, it's kind of a bit of rediscovery.
Could you describe Hōkūleʻa structurally, like the length of it? What can you kind of tell us a little bit about the two canoes?
Sure. The beauty of Hōkūleʻa, so she's 62 feet length overall. Her width overall is about 21 feet from the outside of the cross beams or yako on both sides. Her draft underwater is about 3 to 3.5 feet. And her freeboard up above the water to where the deck is about 4 feet, 4.5 feet. She displaces 12.5 tons of weight. And, you know, initially on the initial voyages, we took way too much things, thinking, in our mind, having not done it, oh, we need this, we need that. And we kept piling stuff on, right? Well, nowadays, we kind of know what we need. So the fudge factor, we go with a little less of a fudge factor for water and food and other equipment. So she's lighter and she sails faster and actually sails a lot kindlier, which is nice. She's everything is lashed together. The yako, or the cross members, are lashed to the hull. The deck are lashed to that. All the safety rails and everything are lashed. So there's over 6 miles of lashing cord.
Wow.
Holding all the pieces together. And it's built kind of like a puzzle. So when you come time to redo everything, you just cut the lashing and all the pieces come apart. And then you stack them up and you refinish it. And then eventually you just start lashing everything piece by piece and put it back together like a puzzle. It is solid. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I wonder if you could share with us, I mean, in the introduction and on your website, we talked about the fact that these canoes kind of disappeared from the planet for 600 years. So could you kind of share a little bit about the history of why they disappeared and then what was the inspiration for bringing them back?
Yeah, they disappeared in Polynesia, which kind of is delineated in a Western sense from Hawaii up north down to Rapa Nui or Easter Island in the southeast, and Aotearoa, New Zealand, down in the southwest. So within that triangle, you have all the Polynesian-speaking islands, right? So it's like Marquesas, Tahiti, Samoa, Tonga, Rarotonga, the Cook Islands, and other small islands in between. So it kind of disappeared from within that sector of the Pacific, and some other areas, but it kept going in Micronesia and parts of Melanesia. I'm not sure why it disappeared in Polynesia. Nobody really has a good answer for that, but the fact that it just kind of it just stopped about 600 years ago, and there were just stories and songs and chants, and that was that.
So can you talk about Herb Kāne and his vision to bring this back?
So Herb Kāne was a very multi-talented individual. He was an artist. He was a historian. He was an amazing individual. Back, I think, in the 50s, he played in the NFL in the early years of football, of NFL. I mean, this guy was... And he was a scholar. And his belief was that if there was one cultural item that we all identify within the Pacific, and even the Pacific Rim, it's the canoe. That was our mode of travel, trade, discovery, so much more. Daily movement, fishing, the whole bit. But so he was all about that research. He did really big research. The other founder who was really influential was Dr. Ben Finney.
Okay.
And Dr. Ben Finney in the late 50s and early 60s did his doctoral thesis on Polynesian voyaging and navigation and just migrations and movements. And so he was another one who was really super influential, one of the founders. As far as Hōkūleʻa being built, these two individuals, along with a third individual, his name is Tommy Holmes, they collaborated to start the Polynesian Voyaging Society in 1973. One of the main purposes of the Polynesian Voyaging Society was to build the canoe, find the navigator, sail to Tahiti and back, document it. And the documentation, the purpose was to, like I said earlier, was to bring the relevance of it all and the beauty of it and the relevance of it back into today's world as something that's actually tangible. And part of that was because in 1947, Thor Heyerdahl is a Norwegian individual, built a raft called Kon-Tiki.
Okay.
And his theory was that the islands of the Pacific, the migrations came from South America because the prevailing winds and the currents all flow from east to west. And it just made sense to get on a raft and go west, but you never get home. And but the deal with that was the big many holes in that theory was, first of all, linguistics, the language. The language within the Pacific is very different from South America and North America. So linguistics wise, there's no match at all. Secondly, at that time, all of the plants, the voyaging plants that are on every island in the Pacific, all came from the West, except for one, which is the sweet potato. Mm. So if you're talking about like 20 or 30 basic plants that came from the West, you only have one that came from the South America, which is the sweet potato. And that's attributed to voyaging and discovery. So those are some of the things, but you can talk about it forever, but the whole impetus was to build the canoe and start doing something about it.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing you say is some of the inspiration was around this sort of controversial subject of the first people to come over in the canoes. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it was about that theory, right? It was about the theory that was being promoted through all the Pacific scholars. They understood how so much of it was based on what I just talked about, linguistics, and many other things. The whole trail leading into the Central Pacific came out of the West.
Hey everyone, it's Scott here. Did you know that the members of my real estate team, W Realty Group, are listening to their own voices that call to adventure by setting big goals? Some of those goals include planning trips to Bali and the Kingdom of Bhutan, buying investment homes, and running the Chicago Marathon. At W Realty Group, we support and encourage these big goals and want to help turn them into reality. We're currently looking to add new members to the team. If you know a great real estate agent in the Charlotte, North Carolina area that would benefit from being part of our team, please send a text, an email, or give me a call. And know that when you support W Realty Group, you're also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening. It's amazing. So Hōkūleʻa was built in the 1970s. I mean, here we are like 50 years later. What is Hōkūleʻa's life looked like as a sailing vessel?
Awesome. So Hōkūleʻa was launched in March 8th, 1975. It was an amazing day, but it was very quickly it became a really pretty scary day and a lot of anxiety because now nobody knew how to sail this thing. It was like all over the map. And so it was the learning curve became very sharp, at that point. So they spent the whole year of 75 after the launch sailing inter-island with many, many young Hawaiians. And so they learned a lot. And then the one beautiful thing that was such a blessing of all time was there was a Micronesian navigator, Mao Piailug, who was, this guy was the real deal as far as a seaman. He was trained from a very, very young age, like we say, like 5 years old, by his father and grandfather to be a navigator and a sailor. But he was the whole package because he built the canoes. He built his own canoes from a log with a stone adze, or like now more in this modern age, the adze are more metal with a metal adze. But you got to see it to believe it. I mean, it does no justice as saying that he built this canoe with an adze. I mean, this guy was a true artist. The final product of a canoe is just so fine and so skillfully and cleverly built. He built his own canoe. They made their own rope out of coconut fiber.
Out of coconut fiber. Love it.
All the canoe parts, were just custom built. And then they sailed these canoes through the islands, and out to the fishing grounds like they've done for thousands of years. So when we had met Mao, and Mao had become a part of Hōkūleʻa in 1974 and 75, he was like 40 years old. He was like more than seasoned. He had done, I don't know how many miles. He had, tens of thousands of miles on the ocean. And his ability to read the ocean swells and the texture of the ocean, the clouds, and everything in the sky, the stars at night and how they twinkle, and the difference in how they twinkle will predict weather changes. I mean, so much. It's just like so fascinating. And he became our teacher. He became our guide. Hōkūleʻa, she was a canoe that was built for a 5,000-mile journey.
Wow.
In 1976. But since then, up to this point, she sailed many, many voyages, and she's got over 200,000 miles under her keels.
200,000 miles.
And it's because of Mao as our original teacher and a guide, but many, many other people in the islands and throughout the Pacific, elders who are also inspirations, and led that the foundation of inspiration and strength to keep the canoe sailing.
So can you tell us about that? I think the first voyage was in 1976. Is that right?
That's correct.
Can you tell us about that first voyage?
That first voyage was pretty raw. I mean, guys just slept on deck. They cooked their food. They had no propane. They burned coconut husks to make fire, to cook the fish that they caught, and to make a fish stew. Their fall weather gear, if you could call it that, was just like so minimal, and the space was minimal. I mean, it was pretty wild. I mean, nobody really knew too much about how they were going to do all this. And but Mao navigated, and he became like a real guide for everything about seamanship and onboard duties. And 31 days later, just guided by the stars, the ocean swells, and the wind, they made landfall on the small atoll of Matahiva, which is north of Tahiti.
I think that's the most amazing part to me, is the navigation through the stars. And I definitely want to come back and talk about that a little bit. But that first trip was Hawaii to Tahiti. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so you said it took 31 days.
Yep.
Yeah. So you got involved not long after that. How did you get involved, Bruce?
Myself, like many young Hawaiians at the time, Hōkūleʻa was just like an amazing concept, and there wasn't much for us young Hawaiians, to be a part of like that. So when Hōkūleʻa came around, we said, oh man, I don't know if we missed the boat, but it would have been nice to be a part of that, and you just kind of dreamed about it. I never felt that it was ever going to happen because that was that. But after they came home, there was a small group of people that my brother-in-law, Nainoa, who wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, he said, hey, we're going to do some work on the canoe. You're going to come by? I said, absolutely. So, I went down with him and others, and we were sanding the wood where it needed to be, sanded and refinished, and went down a couple more days after that. They said, hey, we're going to go sailing this weekend. You want to go? Oh, absolutely. So that was that, and that's how we got involved. But it's pretty much how people still get involved. Just come on down, and they help out where needed, and they're invited to go on these weekend sails or these afternoon sails, and that's how it's still done. Yeah.
So you got invited, and you just showed up and helped out a little bit. I really want to understand, though, how do you go from that to becoming captain and navigator on voyages that have taken you over tens of thousands of miles on Hōkūleʻa?
Okay, got it. So I sailed just as a crew member in 1978, and then in 1980, and then 87 I'm 85 as a crew member, 86 as a crew member. And then 87, after all those voyages, I became like a watch captain, like a senior crew member. And then in 1990, there was an effort to teach navigation. And so there are 4 of us who was asked if we wanted to be a part of that. So I said, sure. And that was quite the task. I mean, that's quite the ask, and it was quite the effort to jump into with 2 feet,
Yes.
But you might as well do it and just, let's just see it through and do our best. So we trained for studying navigation for 2 years, from 1990 to 92. Me and another apprentice navigator, Kimo Lyman, we did a return voyage from the Cook Islands to Tahiti and back home to Hawaii in 1992. Practicing navigation as apprentices. That worked out, and that was quite the effort, because you study all this stuff and you're feeling pretty good about it. Once you let those dock lines go and you start the process, you realize very fast that you really have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
Right.
But it was really about just going through that process, and every day you're learning, every day. So, we got home. The beauty of it was that we learned a lot, and that the biggest thing we learned is like what we don't know. And if we're going to do this again, we have a better idea of what we need to know. So that was like a good first stepping stone. And then from there in 1995, we did a voyage to Tahiti and back to Hawaii. And I was a co-captain and co-navigator with Kalepa Babayan, who was also one of the young navigators in 92. So I was a co-captain going down to Tahiti on a canoe called Hawaii Loa. But I was a captain coming back. And so since 95, I've been a captain navigator. And so it's just that progression.
Do you remember the very first voyage that you took on Hōkūleʻa?
I do.
How far was that?
That one didn't get too far. That was 1978.
Uh-huh.
And when we left Oahu, and we left in a gale, and we got into the Kaiwi Channel between Oahu and Molokai. The canoe had swamped, and then it capsized.
Oof.
And so we didn't get too far, and that was the voyage where we lost a world-class, world-renowned surfer named Eddie Aikau on that voyage. So that was a very short-lived voyage.
And that was your first experience on Hōkūleʻa.
That was my first experience.
What was that like for you?
Again, I mean, it wasn't the best of experience. It was a great experience. It wasn't the best situation, but I think everybody handled themselves admirably. The whole crew, the officers and the crew. The only one that we lost was Eddie because he took off in a canoe to get help, and we never saw him again. But everybody else came home safely. The canoe got back to Oahu and back on it. Everything got back on its feet. So we learned a lot. We learned a lot from there. I just want to say, up to that point, Hōkūleʻa probably had about 15,000 miles under her keel.
Mm-hmm.
From that point now, over 200,000 miles under her keel. So, it was a point where we did make almost a quantum leap into knowledge and safety and all of that.
Bruce, I guess I wonder, this is your very first experience voyaging on Hōkūleʻa. It was a really tough first experience with the storm, with losing a crew member. Yet when you guys came back, you decided to keep going with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess I just wonder if you could kind of talk a little bit more about what fueled you to want to keep going and continue doing this.
There was a few things. First of all, I really wanted to do it. And that was my biggest dream and aspiration, was to sail the Pacific. So I wasn't going to just give up, at that point. And I wasn't afraid because, we had, like I said, our leadership and others, everything was admirable about how they handled it. When I look back at that now, and now I'm in a leadership position, you kind of understand what it's going to take, to be a leader and to have to deal with those type of hard consequences or situations or whatever it is. But I don't know. I guess you just kind of keep your eye on the real dream and the real goal,
Yeah, I love though that you just said, as a leader, what it takes, or you learn to understand what it takes. And so I'm wondering, for listeners, what does it take?
Well, it just takes a lot of the strength that you need is more of a moral strength. It's kind of like as a family member, as a parent or grandparent, just a real certainty of decision making that you feel is the best, and you just kind of we're all working together, but at some point someone has to be the rock in the storm, but you're gonna have to accept that.
Was there a point for you where you kind of crossed over, being the crew member, to realizing that you were that rock?
It was. It was the start of it was the 92 voyage as a navigator, but the real crossing was in 95 as a captain, and you've got to, the thing about it, you got to understand, defining success of things is the other key factor, for navigation and everything. People might think, well, you landed right here at the exact spot that you expected to land, and your navigation, everything was just so spot on. That's a beautiful thing. With us, there is no instrument that's measuring anything.
Yeah.
There's no instrument to measure your speed. There's no instrument to measure your fixed position in the ocean. All of your it's just a factor of deduced reckoning or dead reckoning, where you're just keeping track of your average speed, and you're keeping track of your direction and this is based on the rising sun, the setting sun during the day, the swells and the wind during the day. After the setting sun, the stars and moon at night, and even the moon during the day, but also still the movement of the ocean swells and so much more. And so the navigator is just a constant effort in using all of these signs to stay oriented. And in the end, success is really how far have we progressed in knowledge, not only as a captain and navigator, but everyone on board, people safe. Because of that, we are at a better place every voyage. We end every voyage at a better place, and that's kind of like how a lot of us tend to define success because of that. Yeah, all these voyages, they are unique and they are their own, but they're always building. They're part of building blocks of this rediscovery.
I think one thing, like for me, and I probably for a lot of listeners, that it's really hard to get your head around is that, you guys are doing this without technology, without instruments. Like, I'm wondering, like, if you could give me and listeners a little bit more insight on navigation by the stars and what some of those fundamentals are. What are some of the things that you have to learn to be able to do this?
Oh, Scott. Okay, well, some of the fundamentals you need to learn. I mean, it's such a multifaceted knowledge base. So you need to have a bit of astronomy. So you need to understand how the sky works, as far as all the different delineations of the sky. So first of all, if you take the celestial equator, there's stars right on the celestial equator, which is like a classic one is Orion's belt.
Okay.
Those stars, especially the leading one, Mintaka, rises right at the latitude of east. And that equator, now everything south of that are all southern stars. So Hikianalia is a southern star. It rises in the south, goes across the sky. It rises south of the equator, goes across the sky, sets south of the equator in the west. Hōkūleʻa is a northern star, so it rises north of east, goes across the sky, and sets north of west. So you just kind of learn, those are fundamentals. The northern stars are all going to rise north of east and all set north of west. Southern stars rise south of east and set south of west. Another line that goes from the north celestial pole, which is where the North Star is. You go straight overhead, down south, and you go, and that cuts the sky in half. That's called the meridian. And it just delineates the eastern part of the sky and the western. So all the stars rise in the east. They get to their highest point, like an arc of a rainbow. That's the meridian. And once they pass the meridian, then they start setting. They're going down on they're going on the backside of the rainbow and they're setting. So you learn how to delineate that. Ultimately, you learn 200 stars. It seems like crazy, unbelievable idea, but slowly but surely, you just take it in chunks. You will learn these 200 stars, and it'll be fun. And the beauty of it is that you don't only learn the stars, you learn how to use them. And ultimately, their purpose is to help you determine your heading and the direction that you're sailing in. And that's what all that is. It's like a compass. That's your compass.
It's so cool. So just to kind of listen to you talk, I mean, and understanding that what you're boiling this down to is like understanding these 200 stars as sort of like this map and making sure that you're navigating in the right direction. I feel like I read on the website that you're not necessarily trying to pinpoint a direct line from, say, point A to point B, but you're trying to get to the vicinity where you're going. Is that right?
That's right. Like, so very, very few times you're looking for just one speck in the ocean. When we sailed to Tahiti, we sailed down into a screen of islands, which are called the Tuamotus, which is north, and it trends towards the east of Hawaii. And east of Tahiti, down south. And there are just many, many atolls that are a big group of atolls. So that's like looking for the forest to eventually find the tree that you want. When you come up to Hawaii, you're coming up to look for the islands of the group of islands of Hawaii, not just like one island.
Yeah.
And these are the beauty of Hawaii is that our mountains are pretty high. You know, on the big island of Hawaii, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa are both almost 14,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Haleakala in Maui is 10,500 feet. They're big mountains.
Yeah.
You see them from like 100 miles out, you know, if you get the good weather. But the guide, the real guide coming home and finding the islands is a Southern Cross. This is a beautiful thing, though, Scott. The Southern Cross, when you are down in Tahiti, is about 40, I think it's about 43 or 46. The bottom star, called Acrox, is 43 degrees above the horizon down in Tahiti. And then by the time you get to the mid-latitude of the Hawaiian Islands, which is 20.5 degrees north, the bottom star of the Southern Cross is 6 degrees above the horizon, the southern horizon at its highest point. When it's in the meridian, remember now, the meridian is that line where the stars rise and they get to their highest point and then they start setting. So in the Southern Cross, it rises kind of on the side, and when it gets to the meridian, it's like upright.
Yeah.
When that bottom star, Acrox, is 6 degrees from the horizon, and you measure it with 3 fingers like this, outstretched, and from Acrox, the bottom star of the Southern Cross, and Gaycrox, the top star, is also 6 degrees separation. So when you have that equal distance between those two stars and then the bottom star on the horizon, you are like smack dab in the latitude of Hawaii that runs right through the islands. All the exercise, the basic fundamental exercise was for a navigator to sail from Tahiti and watch those stars of the Southern Cross slowly lower until it gets to that point. And at that point, your main decision is it's time to turn west and find the Hawaiian Islands.
Mm.
And over all the many times that we've sailed to Hawaii, that's been how it's worked.
That's so amazing. Wait, you talked about using 3 fingers. Do you have other like instruments that you use to measure like degrees and direction? And
No, you just use your hand. Like if you're looking for a star that's 6 degrees, you put the outstretched 3 fingers like this.
Yeah.
And the bottom, your bottom finger is on the horizon, and right on the tip of your top finger is like, for me, it's 6 degrees. For every individual, it's going to be different. It's a customized thing because some people got thicker fingers, thinner fingers, you know. Their arms are longer or not as long. I mean, it's just, everybody's got to calibrate their own hand. Sometimes you put an outstretched hand like this, with your thumb is on the horizon, and the other measure stars, and but it's a customized thing.
it's so cool. Bruce, what is it like for you to be part of keeping this tradition alive? I mean, in this world where we've got GPS and radar and all these things, and you guys are navigating purely by the stars using 3 fingers, and like, what is that like for you to keep that tradition alive?
I think I'm just so, I just always feel so fortunate, that I've had this opportunity and that I've met so many wonderful teachers and mentors and inspirational people that's giving me this opportunity to learn. So what it means to me is that, it's time to give back. It's just that. Scott, it's just time to give back. So, we have so many young people that want to learn and they're excited. And so, it's our kuleana responsibility, so to say, to just keep sharing.
But Bruce, why I just want to I love the tradition, but when you do have all of these technologies like GPS, right? Why keep alive this navigational concept? I mean, what is the relevance of it? I guess I'm just curious about that, right?
Because that's in indigenous or native cultures.
Yeah.
So much of native cultures over time have been made, irrelevant. Yeah. There's so many things that have been made irrelevant because of technology that makes things so easy. But, these cultures are like old. They're like 7,000, 10,000 years old, and there's a tremendous amount of relevance to it. And so I think by keeping it alive, you're helping to just keep a body of knowledge going and strengthening cultures, not only in Hawaii, but throughout the Pacific and the world.
Yeah.
And they become educational tools for so much more also. So I just think, for the Hawaiian culture, we got to a point where it wasn't only that the canoes, the big canoes had stopped sailing 600 years ago. The Hawaiian language itself was outlawed to being taught in school. And so slowly that was being ripped away, from the culture. And then, when the missionaries came, they said, dancing hula was like such an affront, to the missionaries. Good grief, and so much more. But now it's all come back. That's the rhythm and the way of the land and the culture here. So, at the heart of it, I don't know how to say it any more simpler than that is part of these islands and the culture and all of that.
Well, so much of it for me too is, these technologies that we have, like we've become reliant on them and we have to trust these like devices. Whereas, what you all are doing is you're trusting this traditional wisdom to be able to do these things on your own without having to put trust in gadgets and technology. It's pretty incredible, I think.
Oh, it's pretty neat. Just as another note, most of the stars in the skies have Arabic names. And when I teach the stars to others, I just keep in mind, I said, the reason they have Arabic names is because those old caravans that went across those vast stretches of the Sahara Desert, and those basically unmarked places that kind of all the sand dunes look alike, those guys were masters of their world. And they traveled through that, just like how you travel through the ocean. And they use the stars, and they use all so much more, and so this kind of technology is like, and skill set and everything and navigation is like just amazing. Why not keep it alive? Because it's like there's so much to be learned from it.
I think it's incredibly rich, and I absolutely think that we need to keep the tradition alive. And I think it's amazing what you guys are doing. Now, there is a grand voyage that's in process right now, and I'm going to try to pronounce it. It's on the website, Moana Nui Akea.
Oh, well done.
Did I get it?
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us about this voyage that's going on right now?
Absolutely. So Moana Nui Akea refers to the vast ocean, the Pacific Ocean. So Moana is basically the ocean, but Nui Akea just means the vastness of it all. And this voyage is a Pacific Rim. It started in Alaska. We've done some part of it last year. We went from Yakutat, Alaska, down the coast to San Diego. And it's based on two things. It's based on the relevance of indigenous and native wisdom, which is like over 10,000 years old, about your connection to nature and the environment and your understanding of it and your relationship to it, your relationship to the oceans and so much more through that wisdom, and trying to recapture that. And we believe that a lot of solutions that are being sought today, whether it's for climate change or so much other things, there are answers in that native wisdom. The other thing is to mesh that with the best science and leaders that we have today regarding understanding our oceans. And that the oceans, this planet, our planet Earth, is 75% water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the greatest part of it is the oceans. And the oceans are not only the regulator of temperature and climate, throughout the planet. It also does the heavy lifting for photosynthesis and the production of oxygen. And the guys who do the heavier lifting for us are the little guys, the plankton, especially the phytoplankton. Those are the guys that outdistance the Amazon rainforest and any other forest that we know on Earth, and all the plants on Earth. It's those little guys, and we understand that. And if the oceans get to a point where those guys are being compromised, just imagine every tree on the planet that be cut down. Yeah, it ain't gonna be pretty. So that's kind of what it's about, and it's going to the reason the Pacific Rim and even places in between is to all the cultures that share this common space called the Moana-Nui-Akea. And just engaging and just talking and learning and inspiring, and we learn and we get so inspired so much more than others know. They think that we're the guys going around doing all this great stuff, and it is such an inspiration, and it is. It is. We're all inspired by it all, but we learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly learn a lot. We meet some really good people. We make some really good friends. It's just this ongoing journey to try and do our part.
It is, and from what I gather from the website, this journey is kind of been broken up into like week-long segments. And as you said, you guys have already covered the West Coast of the United States, but it looks like you go back to Hawaii and then you're over Asia, and covering the entire Pacific Rim, as you said. Yeah. And if people want to learn more about it, the website is so informative. There's some great maps on there that show this journey that's in process and scheduled to go, I believe, into 2027. Is that right?
That's correct. And it'll go beyond that. But yeah, the website, Hōkūleʻa.com, you just go to that, and then you learn a lot. And then, there's chat, chime in and ask questions and become part of it, in some way and stuff. It's a beautiful thing. The whole effort is for the Earth. It really is for the Earth. We protect our oceans. We're giving everyone on the planet, that much more of a safer place, in the near future and the deeper future.
Bruce, if people want to help out or get involved, what's the best way for them to do that?
Go on to the website, Hōkūleʻa.com, get to kind of check it out. And there's places to connect there. There's places to connect. Hey, we got one of our sailors now. She's from Belgium. And she came to Hawaii. She's doing a doctorate, and then she sailed with us, and she had to go back. She's still in touch. I forget where she is now. I forgot, she's someplace. But she's always in touch and always, and there's people on the East Coast that have sailed with us on the West Coast, and they're amazing. Like this one gal was such an amazing young scientist, especially with plankton. Inspired everyone on the canoe, and we learned so much. And she's always in touch. So it's a matter of just kind of like getting in calm through the website, and yeah.
I love it. Well, as I told you, Hawaii is my happy place. So I hope to come back sometime soon, and I hope to be able to witness Hōkūleʻa for myself firsthand. That would just be incredible, just to be able to be in the presence. Bruce, you have done tens of thousands of nautical miles on Hōkūleʻa. This has been such an epic journey. At some point, Hollywood is going to pick up on the story of Hōkūleʻa, and they're going to want to make a movie about it. And I want to know, when they do, who's going to be the Hollywood actor that's going to play you in this movie?
I have no idea. I can't think of anybody. But I would like to see someone who loves the ocean, and so steps into that role with a real good feel, and enjoyment for what he's doing. So I don't have a name. I'm sorry, Scott.
I love it. Well, we'll cast a newcomer. And but what's the movie going to be called?
Dreams Over the Horizon.
Ooh, Dreams Over the Horizon. I love that. I think the name Hōkūleʻa should be part of the movie title. Hōkūleʻa, Dreams Over the Horizon.
Absolutely.
I love that. Hey, Bruce, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate the wisdom. I really appreciate what you all are doing. It is just such a cool thing, and the way that you guys are just keeping the Hawaiian tradition alive. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Bruce's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Bruce, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure, Scott. That was fun.